Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is just deeply human. It's incredibly difficult and pretty much universally understood: the immediate aftermath of a breakup. You know how it usually goes, right? The relationship ends, the text messages get shorter, the calls completely stop, and suddenly, that person you thought was going to always be a part of your daily routine, they're just gone. Now, if you're hurting right now while listening to this, I really want you to know something. That sudden, painful reality of a relationship ending and that heavy, heavy silence that follows, it's literally one of the toughest things we ever have to navigate. But today, we're going to talk about exactly how to navigate it and how to do it with absolute dignity. In that immediate aftermath, your mind is probably just racing a mile a minute. You might be staring at your phone right now, asking yourself some pretty frantic questions. Things like, how do I get them to miss me? Or should I keep texting? Maybe even, should I remind them of all the good times we had? Should I fight for this? Look, I want to validate that raw, immediate panic for a second. Asking these frantic questions is a completely natural, biological reaction to heartbreak. Your brain is just trying to solve a sudden problem. It's trying to fix a sudden loss. So let's get into section 1, the post-breakup instinct. We really need to examine our immediate, overwhelming gut reactions here, because what feels right in the moment is often the exact opposite of what actually helps. Let's break down this contrast between the instinct and the actual result. On one hand, we have the instinct, chasing, explaining, convincing, and even begging for another chance. In your head, it feels like you're fighting for love, right? But what's the actual result? What this really does is communicate desperation. Rather than pulling your ex back in, it unintentionally pushes them even further away. It's wild, but our frantic instinct to fight for the relationship actually ends up totally sabotaging it. And this brings us to a brilliantly simple but absolute core reality of human psychology. Begging rarely rebuilds attraction. I know, it's a hard truth, but it's an essential one for us to internalize. If there's any chance of rebuilding a relationship down the line, it absolutely cannot be built on a foundation of pleading. Rebuilding anything, whether that's a relationship with an ex or honestly just your own peace of mind, starts with self-respect. So what's the healthy alternative then? Well, that brings us to section 2, the power of space. This is all about creating that crucial emotional and physical distance. Now, these first steps might seem incredibly simple on the surface. Step 1, give them space. Step 2, stop chasing. Simple, right? But man, they're incredibly difficult to execute when you're hurting. After a breakup, you feel this overwhelming urge to just keep calling, to keep explaining your side of the story. But giving someone space isn't about playing some game, and it's definitely not about pretending you don't care. It's about respecting the breakup. If someone has asked for space, actually respecting that decision shows immense emotional maturity. It ensures that if they ever do reconsider the relationship, they're doing it because they genuinely want to, not just because you pressured them into it with endless phone calls. Which leads us to this really powerful concept. Absence creates clarity. Think of constant contact like static on a radio. It completely prevents both people from properly processing what just happened. By taking a step back and just letting the silence settle, you give both yourself and your ex the room to think clearly, to breathe, and to actually understand the reality of the separation. Okay, so what do you actually do with all that leftover energy? You move to section 3, focusing on your growth and really investing in yourself. Now, what's super interesting about these steps, investing in your life through exercise or your career, becoming your healthiest self by sleeping and eating well, and using social media naturally, meaning no dramatic heartbreak quotes, is the intention behind them. You are doing all of this for you, not to impress your ex, not as some sneaky trick to make them jealous online. You do this because your life matters, totally regardless of the relationship. Personal growth is a complete win-win. It benefits you whether the relationship ever returns or not. And you know, as you start to focus on that personal growth, your entire mindset actually begins to shift. Instead of being completely consumed by that desperate urge of, how do I get my ex back? You'll start asking yourself this far more empowering question: what can I learn from this relationship? You begin to reflect on the past communication, like, were there unresolved conflicts? Did you have completely different expectations? Every single relationship, even the ones that end, teaches us something. This kind of reflection is exactly what makes you an even better partner for the future. But as we heal, there's definitely a dangerous detour a lot of folks take. Let's head into section 4, avoiding toxic mind games. We absolutely need to steer clear of these toxic mind games. This means no dating someone else just to provoke a reaction, no posting overly curated pictures just to spark jealousy, or pretending to be way happier than you actually are. Honestly, that just creates more confusion, not healing. And hey, if you do eventually reconnect and communicate, keep it respectful. Try to listen just as much as you speak. Because at the end of the day, healthy relationships are rebuilt through honesty, calm conversations, and emotional maturity. They are absolutely never rebuilt through mind games and exhausting emotional arguments. You know, the whole reason people play those mind games in the first place is because of an illusion of control. But you've got to remember this core truth. You cannot control another person's heart. This is literally the single biggest mistake people make, spending months, sometimes even years, trying to control someone else's feelings. You can only control your own actions. And honestly, that is fantastic news. It means your energy is so much better spent becoming stronger, wiser, and healthier, rather than trying to force an outcome that's entirely out of your hands. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most emotional resolution of this explainer. Let's look at Section 5, the reality of moving forward and finding acceptance. Okay, I'm going to be very direct with you on this one. You have to accept that they may not come back. It is by far the hardest truth to hear, because no matter how much you grow, no matter how much you change, your ex might still decide not to restart the relationship. And you know what? That is completely okay. Real healing only truly begins when your happiness no longer depends on someone else's decision. Finding acceptance doesn't mean you're giving up on love. It just means you're finally freeing yourself to move forward. And look, if they are going to miss you, let them miss the real you. People do not miss constant pleading or weird jealousy traps. They miss kindness. They miss laughter, those shared late-night memories, and mutual respect. They miss the version of you that was genuine and emotionally healthy. So your ultimate goal really shouldn't be to convince someone to return. Your goal is simply to become someone you are incredibly proud of. Because when it comes down to it, your worth has never depended on one relationship. It just never will. People are always way more likely to remember the person who handled heartbreak with quiet dignity over the person who begged to be loved. Healing is always a victory. Building an exciting, deeply fulfilling life for yourself, that is the ultimate goal, entirely regardless of what happens with your ex. Well, we have covered a whole lot of ground today, looking at the immense power of stepping back versus that frantic instinct to pull closer. So I want to leave you with a final thought to really ponder. Do you believe giving someone space after a breakup actually helps? Or do you think couples should just keep communicating to work through it? It is a super delicate balance, and I really encourage you to reflect on what true healing means for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep investing in yourself.